on June 11, 2018, and we are at Nashua High School North. Roll call. Ms. Van Triver,
Present.
Mr. Mosier,
I'm here.
Ms. Porter,
Here.
Ms. O'Gara. Here. Okay, also present is Ms. Hohensee and Mr. Kaufman. And, I'm sorry, oh, and Mr. Guarino and also Ms. Odom. Okay, on the agenda for today, you have the administrative interview with the assistant principal of Mount Pleasant Elementary School. In that packet, you will find her resume. We have her here in the audience, and if you'd like to ask some questions to Ms. Cerrone, sorry, Ms. Cerrone, please keep it short, as she have to leave pretty quickly to get back home for personal reasons. So, Ms. Cerrone, would you like to come forward, please? Anyone have questions?
She's going to give a summary first of her.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's true.
Will you kindly give us a short summary?
Okay, I am a Nashua High School graduate. I went all through the Nashua school system. I stayed in Nashua for my education from Riviera College. I did my student teaching in Nashua, and from there I began my career at Sunset Heights Elementary School. I taught second grade, third grade, and was a special education teacher there. From there, I began as the ESY coordinator for the intensive special needs students in our district. So with that, I did a lot of coordinating with teachers, faculty, staff members, paraeducators. I had the responsibility of creating the class lists, working with other staff members to develop their planning for the ability to meet IEP goals. And then from there, I did that for 3 summers, and I ended up transferring to Ledge Street Elementary School, where I've been teaching kindergarten for the past 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Van Triver?
I have not heard about an extended school year coordinator. Could you talk about that a little bit for me, please?
Okay, sure. So we have usually it's the preschool program it's summer school. Basically, it's just the extended school year, and it's for those students who we feel need a little bit more continuity over the summer so as not to lose too much of their skills that they've gained over the school year. I did the preschool program, and that right there was we did it 3 days a week or 4 days a week, depending on, how the weeks fell with 4th of July. And then the students would come in, they were set in classrooms that were typically by their intensive needs classes throughout the school year. It would pretty much stay the same during the summer, but their teachers might be different. Not all teachers were up for teaching summer school. And then the coordinator basically was the administrator for the building. So I was at Amherst Street for a few years, and then I did the elementary program, and that was over at Dr. Crisp.
So there's one for each school?
What it is,
Title I?
there's one for ESY for preschool, there's one coordinator for elementary, and then there's one for middle and high. So there's 3 coordinators.
3 coordinators total for the district?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Has that name changed since you had this position?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Can you really walk away from the classroom?
I can. I'm ready.
Okay. Because it's always a tough transition, right?
It
and
is.
I always like to ask.
I'm ready. I'm ready for that change.
Okay. And what I'm finding very interesting about on this left column that you have here
Yes.
is if you could explain to me and perhaps the other folks, life space crisis intervention certified and crisis prevention intervention. If you could expand on that, I'm very curious to know.
Sure.
Because this is the first time I've seen it. so-
Absolutely. So the first one, we were given grant money or got grant money at Ledge Street School due to our the mental health crisis. And so what we did is some of the teachers were able to go to Ceresc for, I believe it was almost 10 days of training, where we really looked at different factors that were influencing students and when they're in crisis, how to help them out of crisis, whether it be a conversation or a big thing with that program is working backwards, trying to figure out what the students really encountered before the incident or the behavior escalated, going back. And with that program, we've seen a huge difference. Not everyone is trained in it, unfortunately. It's a very expensive program, but it's something that really doesn't necessarily focus on the behavior, but looks at more of a way to solve the problem. You know, it's more of a problem-solving thing. You're not sitting there and really focusing on the disciplinary action. You're more working with the student to figure out ways to better deal with things that are affecting them in their lives.
When you started to explain it, I thought of root cause analysis. You know, what you said is what could be causing this behavior. We'll deal with that behavior, yes, later, but let's try and understand what is causing it.
Absolutely.
So you're really requiring people to be very reflective.
Reflective
and not everybody
patient.
is, and patient is the other word.
Right.
Yeah, because this is can you tell me how many teachers in the district do you know of that might have been certified in this?
I know for our building, the only classroom teacher was myself, and then administration. I believe at the time our student support was also part of this, and I know our librarian. Like it was just who had an interest in it, and behavior is something that I have a very strong interest in, and really working with students and trying to help them improve their behavior and make themselves better learners in the process.
Okay, and then, so that's the crisis prevention?
That's the first one.
Oh, that's the first one, life space.
Yes.
Crisis. Okay, and the second one?
So
Crisis?
CPI, you probably have heard of that. It's the same thing. What it is it's when you look, again, this is just another thing. A lot of people in the district are certified with this. This is especially helpful with students who are aggressive, may be using their bodies in an unsafe way, but it's not always. Sometimes you might hear of restraints or things like that, but it's a safe way to work with students so as to keep them safe, others safe, and staff safe.
So I guess my last question has to do with this in terms of sharing your knowledge. Obviously, as an assistant principal, you'll be involved in those critical situations if they arise. But I'm curious, are you trained to be a trainer, or can you train using materials you received before?
So I'm not certified. I believe there's only one person certified in the district, maybe two, who are certified to be trainers because they went through the training. I believe like the head behavioral specialist type thing. But there are elements of it that are just good teaching practices that can always be used as reminders, or just having those conversations even with a staff member. Maybe they're having a difficult situation with a particular student. What we could do is use some of those. The language is really a big piece of it. So just imparting my knowledge in that way would, I think, be helpful in many ways.
Thank you very much. Welcome
Thank you.
Any
to your
other
new
question?
position.
Ms. Sohensi?
Thank you. You understand that we hired a wonderful new principal. Have you met him?
I did. Yes, I have met him. I'm very excited.
And I just wanted to know, what is the most exciting thing about this new job when you start? What are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to developing relationships not only with students and staff, but also with members of the community, really working together to make school and education a much more powerful thing in a positive way, because I think a lot of our parents and community members might not have had a positive experience. So by us giving our students a positive experience, that's going to trickle down to their parents, and I think that's really important.
Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Carino?
Thank you. My daughter was in Ms. Cerrone's class at Sunset Heights.
Yes.
And it's because of teachers like Ms. Cerrone that my daughter didn't want to leave Sunset Heights and continue on to Elm Street. She wanted to stay at Sunset Heights. And I can attest that they really had a team environment, very collegial environment, collaborative, the teachers at Sunset Heights. And as you say, there was very positive experiences there. We look back at those, my family looks back at those years. We have a lot of good memories. So I want to thank Ms. Cerrone, all her hard work, that parents are paying attention like me, and we do appreciate what you've done for my family as well as I'm sure a lot of other families too. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Oldham?
Yes, first, congratulations. I worked with Ms. Cerrone on the kindergarten report card writing committee year before last, I think
Yes.
it was. Yeah, so I know her talents, I know her leadership, I know her understanding of children, so I think they made a very good choice in you, and congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Porter?
I also want to extend a warm welcome to you. We're thrilled to have you. You bring a wealth of experience that I think will be a great asset to Mount Pleasant School. So thank you for applying and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I'd too like to congratulate you. You did a wonderful interview. I was impressed. You brought sunshine into the room. That's all I can remember, that big smile and bump. So yes, Ms. Van Triver?
I have been very interested in the reading abilities of our children ever since I've been on this board.
Yes.
And you're a full-time teacher instructing in English language arts and also for the special needs kids. Can you tell me about your experiences with that and how your class grew, or what the situation was with your teaching?
Okay, so do you want me to focus on when I was a special ed teacher or when I'm a classroom teacher?
Classroom teacher. Special ed, I know, understands, takes a little bit longer for them to grasp and whatever, but I'm concerned about the average student who may or may not be able to read and write at grade level.
So I think that's a concern at every grade level. Kindergarten, it is sometimes a bigger concern because they haven't had preschool experience. But something that I have found to be really beneficial is starting with what the students do know coming in. So like in my classroom, we would really look at what each particular student knew when they walked in the door. And then from there, they would have individualized activities per se, or individual, I did word rings with them, and either myself or a paraeducator would go through them each day with them until they would start to really grasp those skills, because just like when you ride a bike, you need a little bit of training wheels. And so we started with letters if that's where the child needed to be. Sometimes it was something even like colors we needed to start with. I would really look to the beginning of what skills they needed and then add to it. And I have to say, when you look at where students start, you're always like, oh my gosh, we have a lot to do. But if you just take a deep breath and you put your faith in these students and you trust yourself as an educator, we're able to see the growth. You know, at the beginning, we're lucky if we have a level A reader or a level B reader, but we're really trying to get them to a level D by the end of kindergarten. And sometimes there are a few that don't make it to a level D, but that's part of when you do placement and you have those conversations when the students move on, is to tell that first grade teacher, this is where so-and-so stopped with me, this is what I had work with him or her, and I think having those conversations will be very beneficial, and that's something I hope to impart in the schools that I work in.
These letters that you were using are part of Fountas and
Pinnell, yes.
Okay. I welcome you to your new position, and I hope that in your position that you really do put a lot of emphasis on reading by the third grade at grade level.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes,
do you have a question for Ms. Cerrone?
I have comment. I don't have a question. I read the resume, and I'm kind of fascinated with her education and background. But, it's always heartening to hear glowing testimonials on the leaders and the teachers in our schools. And I know this is an important thing because as a parent and having my own children that had attended in Maine Dunstable, and it was fascinating to hear them talk in the glowing terms that children learn about their teachers and the administrators in the school. So I congratulate her, and I welcome her on board to the new position, and ensuring that she's going to do a good job. Thank you so much
Are there any other questions?
for being in New Hampshire
Them all.
School District.
Sorry, Mr. Mosier.
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. If not, could we have a motion to accept the candidate for this position before us?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mosier, second
Second?
by Ms. Porter. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mosier is an alternate, and if you would include in the motion the name and money?
And the position.
Okay.
Position?
It's Amanda Cerrone, Assistant Principal for Mount Pleasant Elementary School, New Searles Elementary School for the year 2018-19 at an annual salary of $73,000.
Second.
Second by, Ms. Van Tryver. And so we said that it was moved by you instead because he's the alternate. Is
You
that
can make a
true?
motion.
He can?
You can.
Okay, I make a motion to move that, and then it was second by Ms. Van Tryver. Okay, thank you very much.
Would you like to take a
We
vote?
have a roll call. Okay, can you roll call Ms. Van Tryver,
Yes.
Ms. Porter,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Gloria Timmons, that'd be a yes. Thank you.
Mr. Mosier's an alternate.
Okay,
He doesn't vote. We've
All
got
right.
3 people, right?
right, we got 3 people. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay, the next.
You can write it all in there.
Okay.
The next thing is personnel recommendations that's on the agenda. You have a revised copy that was passed out moments ago prior to the interview. Mr. Mosier, did you get a copy of this revised? He did not. Okay, there's a revised personnel recommendation where instead of resignations, a leave of absent on number 11. If you look at candidate number 11,
Okay.
leave of absent. And it's the resignation for CM and Sergeant Bruce Kimball, junior ROTC instructor at Nashua High North at the conclusion of the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, so noted.
The resignation, Sergeant Major Bruce Kimball.
That's supposed to be the 17.
That was right here.
Yeah, that's it. He's leaving in June 2018.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
that's a mistype for the 18-19.
Okay. There's a mistype on the revised recommendation, and it's 2018 or 2019?
He's leaving at the end of this current
Oh,
school year.
okay.
At the end month, when school ends, this month.
Okay. Did you get that, Mr. Mosier?
Yes, so noted.
Okay. So can we have a roll call to approve the personnel recommendation?
Discussion.
Okay. Questions?
She had her hand up first.
I'm sorry. Ms. O'Hensy, I didn't see you.
I just, maybe Ms. O'Gara would know, do we have a replacement coming for next year to fill this man's position? Are we going to hire over the summer? Because this affects a number of courses, I understand.
Chief Master Sergeant just resigned today, and that's why it was added to the agenda at the last minute. Candidates for the junior ROTC program are provided to us from the Air Force.
Oh, terrific.
And just for a correction there, I don't think it's multiple candidates for this particular candidate because you have to fit in that particular rank structure, which
So-
is a sergeant major, command sergeant major, and it's usually one.
Okay, so they will find someone for us to replace him.
They will provide candidates to us to interview.
Okay, so we'll
So-
get more than one, we'll interview them and select one? Is that the
Yes.
process? Thank you. That's reassuring to know that we don't lose those courses that we have set up.
Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you. So I have a question on the first entry. I'm just surprised that we have a leave of absence for next year on these current approvals. Is that date correct?
Is that 20?
The leaves of absence and the nominations are for the 2018-19 school year. All the resignations that are on the agenda are for the 2017-18 school year. Because
Okay.
we're hiring for next
No,
year.
I
and
understand.
people. Okay.
So if you look at number 7, it doesn't specify the effective date.
It's at the end of, she will be finishing up the end of the school year.
Right, I appreciate your description, but what I'm trying to say is what's in front of us is not clear. And if you're going to approve this as amended or whatever, you folks may want to make an amendment so you're accepting this correctly. So when I'm confused about 11, why would someone take a leave of absence when the school year ends in 2 weeks?
They're taking a leave of absence for next year.
But that's not what it says.
18, 19, Ms. O'Gara?
17, 18.
Originally, there was a mistype for the resignation, and I think that's why the 17-18 is still on there. She is not resigning. She's taking an LOA for next year.
Okay. And then again, on number 15, since you did say resignations were effective at the end of the school year, that needs to be updated with a date also?
Yes, that would be the end of the 2017-18 school year.
Okay. And just for my own curiosity, when you talk about change of status, this is going from a teacher to a head teacher, is that really what that is on number 2? Sorry, from a psychologist to a chief psychologist. Is that the
Yes,
equivalent of a
it's
head
really-
teacher?
It's not, she's still a school psychologist. She is now taking on the additional role of being a chief school psychologist.
So we're no longer looking for a chief school psychologist because we now have filled that particular.
It's a stipend position, much like a
So it's like a head teacher.
Yeah, exactly, yep.
Thank you.
Not Leclerc's position.
So yes, Mark Leclerc
Care, I'm sorry.
was the chief school psychologist. He is currently the chief school psychologist. Next year, Mark Leclerc is just going to be our school psychologist.
Oh, I thought he
The
resigned.
person nominated here is already, it's a head teacher, so it has to be somebody that already works for us. So she is our school psychologist, and she will be taking over that role from Mark.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought he resigned from the district, but it's
He
just
did not.
from that position, the
Just
stipend
from
position.
chief, yeah, the
Well, I'm glad to hear
stipended
that.
position.
I'm glad to hear that.
He's still with us, yes.
So do you want a motion to put those things in order?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to make the, have this approved with the amendments, with the correction, so we can have it go through, but we will also amend or put those dates in for clarification. So let's get this approved, and then with the changes, of course.
So you want to state the changes?
Okay, the changes would be on number 7, we want to put the date.
Do you want me to go through? Do you want me to go through?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually going to start with number 2.
Okay.
And it's not a change of status, it's a nomination for
nomination.
chief.
Nomination?
And then number 7 would be at the conclusion of the 2017-18 school year. And number 11 would be for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 15 is at the conclusion of the 2017-18 school year.
Now, I have a question about, Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the change of the name from, on number 2, change of status to nomination.
You nominate head teachers into positions just the same as you nominate a teacher into a position. So even though it's a head teacher stipended position, like you nominate advisors and you nominate coaches, this would be the same thing. I mean, you could call it a change of status, but actually you're putting her into that.
I understand, thank you,
Okay.
Ms. O'Gara.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, can we have a motion to accept the personnel recommendations with the changes? Oh,
Didn't we want to amend 19 for the current school year?
Oh,
2018-19 school year. It's already here.
But you
To
wanted
17.
17 to 18 was the correction we needed.
For
On
which
what
number?
For number 19?
in red?
No, the renominations are for the 2018-19 school year. It is correct.
No,
It's a resignation.
items, Adam items, number 19.
I
is
thought you
resign-
said number 18.
19.
Oh, yes. It is 17-18. Thank you, Ms. Nancy.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we have a motion to accept the personnel recommendation? Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Van Twyver.
I move the acceptance of the personal recommendations dated June 11th revised with the other corrections that we made this evening.
All right, so moved, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Porter. Okay, can we have a roll call? Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
And that'll be a yes for me, Gloria Timmons, and so moved, passed.
You don't need a roll call.
Okay, well, we did one, so.
Yeah, it's all right,
yeah,
but
It's okay,
you don't
yeah,
need it.
right. All right, then the next one on the agenda is policy GCF. That's for Mr. Coffin?
Thank you. Point of order, Madam Chair. This particular policy was on an agenda and discussed back in December of last year, December 11th. I brought that information forward at the last meeting. I handed it to Ms. Porter at the time. I have copies of a motion that was made at that time that was shared, was not, for some reason, not included in this information because it's relevant. The GCF, that there was a proposal, and I have copies of that proposal here. I can hand out to people, since obviously it didn't make it into the packet. I don't, well, actually, here. I'll give this to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Coffin, but I looked at,
Explain it. I still
Okay.
have the floor. Thank you.
all right.
So
Mr. Coffin.
this policy was voted on by this board in December, and at the time, I want to read to you what the board moved and voted on, because it gave a specific, here it is. Mrs. Oden moved, seconded by Dr. Mortaki, that the draft of the 110917 submitted to the board by Mr. Kaufman labeled Administrative Interview Requirements for Assistant Director, Director, Assistant Principal, and Principal be forwarded to the Superintendent for review and comment. The Superintendent's input should then be shared with the Human Resources Committee at a future meeting on a date that is mutually agreeable, and it says so voted. And that was a vote taken in December, on December 11th, 2017. So I note that there is a current proposal for GCF, which I think it's great to talk about, but if we're going to talk about GCF, it's clear that the previous board, and I've had this on the docket since November, and it needs to be addressed at the same time as this other proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You don't have to, you can just ignore that, because you don't need to discuss that. That vote had asked the superintendent to look at a policy. It was never voted on, it was never, never brought up again in committee. So what you have in committee...
I'm sorry,
excuse
what
me,
part
excuse
of
me,
voted...
Excuse me, I
How
have
could
the
you
floor.
dare say it was not voted on?
Excuse me.
How could you dare say it wasn't voted on? I just
Kaufman,
read from the record how it was voted on.
Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Guarino, please. Okay, please. Thank you for informing me of that.
Right.
But we, in other words, the HR committee already went through this GCF, and we're going to vote on this particular one. I understand what Mr. Kaufman is saying. It was in December of 2017. We was not part of the board at the time. We are now a new board, so regardless of what happened in 2017, I'd like to vote on this GCF dated today, not 2017.
How could you ignore that?
Yes, Ms. Van Triver.
Madam President, I move to deny these changes to GCF until we have a procedure documented to do this. If you eliminate, excuse me, is there a second? If not, then I'm just going to talk.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last statement.
Is there a second?
Can you repeat that, please?
I move to deny these changes to GCF until we have a procedure that is well known to the board and the administration on how we interview people. No second? Then fine.
No, I'm thinking. Do I get think time?
Yes, you do, madam, but...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that, according to the state law, the board approves nominations from the superintendent or from administration. We don't actually have to interview anyone that's employed. We approve people that become employed, but we don't have to interview people. So to have all these resumes and credentials would be hundreds and hundreds of resumes that the board would have to look at. So, so I think this makes a lot of sense. It complies with state law, and I think it's perfectly good the way it is, just to eliminate this line. Board members may request copies of resumes or interviews. What happens is that the superintendent nominates people for employment, and then the board approves. That's the way it's done. The board doesn't take over that responsibility from the administration. And that's state law.
Ms. Oldham?
I think people, when they look at GCF, I think it leaves out some things that's covered under BDEB, which is their Human Resources Committee. There's an awful lot in that policy that speaks to the hiring. So I think this should be tabled, in my opinion, and then cross-reference it with BDEB, because there's an awful lot of the hiring process that is already in the policy for the Human Resources Committee. That would be my comment.
So this is a motion on the table to, I'm sorry, Ms. O'Hensy?
Thank you. Two things. Number one, under Robert's rules, you don't need a second. In a small body, you've got a committee of three members. And number two, to Mr. Guarino's point, it is correct that state statute says the superintendent nominates and we elect. But if you're going to suggest that we get rid of the interview process...
That's not what I said. Not what I said.
...for the board, I mean, I understand that there's an interview process for the administration to come forward with a nomination. But if we are not allowed an interview process of at least the nominee, we are flying blind. We are voting in ignorance, and I don't want to be in that position.
I'd like to make a motion to table this until we further review this. Ms. Van Twyver?
I think it's bad for just one person from the HR committee to sit in on these interviews. I really do. And if you take this out where we can't even look at the credentials of these people, we have no idea what went on at all. I mean, what's the purpose of the HR committee if it's not to observe interviews? And I think that we did a lot of that in previous years. I mean, I remember going through a lot, but I think that there needs to be a procedure that is written up that everybody understands how this interview process is going to go, whether it's a policy of the board or if it's an administrative policy or a procedure. It doesn't matter to me, but I think we all ought to be aware of how this happens. One person from the from the HR committee sitting in on this, I think, is wrong. You only get one snapshot, and so I would not vote for this if we're going to do it. I think it needs to go to have some work done on it by the HR committee, and then it needs to go to policy.
Ms. Oldham?
Yes, thank you. In fact, I was the one who got the one person in there my first term. The other two members, I tried to get all three members of the Human Resources Committee to sit in on interviews, and I didn't have the votes. It was I lost 2-1. Up until then, there was nobody. When I got on the board my first term, nobody from the HR committee was sitting on any of the interviews. And I tried to get the entire HR committee to sit on the interviews, and I couldn't get that through, so we had the one person with the chair, and if the chair couldn't make it, they could appoint somebody. So that's how that came to be, because I know that because that was one thing that I thought was important to the interview process.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I just want to comment on a previous comment that suggested that the current board, that actions by a previous board don't need to be adhered to by the current board. If that were in fact true, you could say the budget doesn't exist or Dr. Mosley's hiring no longer exists. We have here a motion by the board in December that tasked Dr. Mosley to do something specific and report back to the board. I'm asking that, number one, that occur, and number two, when that does come forward, that the discussion of GCF as proposed at that time be conducted in conjunction with what you're about to table. Thank you.
Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I said was that was not voted on by this board, by the committee or the board. It was not approved. That's what I said. What was approved was that the superintendent was to go back and get information and bring it forward. That's all that was approved. You don't need to bring that back up on the agenda. You can set the agenda with the types of policies that you want to pass. You don't have to bring that back up again. That's perfectly up to the committee and the board.
Thank you, Mr. Guarino. I had no intention of bringing it up, so it didn't really matter what he said or not.
Really? Then why are we here if
You're out
not
of
for
order.
deliberation
You're out
and
of order.
discussion? I object. No.
You're out of order.
This is supposed to be a deliberative body.
You're not on
Quiet.
this committee.
Board members
You
have
are out
equal
of order.
access, and you need to make
Mr.
sure
Kaufman,
people get
Mr.
access
Kaufman,
as chair.
Mr. Kaufman,
You're corrupt is what you are.
You can leave my
You're ignorant
committee.
of the policies, Robert's Rules of
can
Order,
leave
any
my
sense of
committee.
fairness.
Leave my committee.
Excuse me.
Leave my committee, please. You're not part of
With
it.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You are
Thank you.
You are in over your head.
Sit down
Yeah, you
and
know
be
what you're
quiet.
doing.
You're all out of order.
Thank you. Good for us. Crazy. You guys are nuts.
We have a motion to table this until we can review this.
I believe we had
Yeah, we had
a
the
motion before that.
All right, the
You either
motion
want to
is to
dispense
table.
with it, or,
No, we don't want to, sorry, Ms. Van
I
Twyver?
had a motion on the floor
To do what? I'm sorry.
to send this, to do these things together. You want to vote for it or not? If you want me to withdraw it, I'll withdraw it.
Please withdraw it and we'll table
All
it.
right.
Now, can we have a motion to table this?
So moved. Okay.
Okay, can we have a roll call? Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Ms. Porter?
Yes.
And I also say yes to table this.
What, is there
To table
anything?
the GCF policy, administrative and supervisor vacancy.
Is there any action to be taken, just tabling it, or
We're going to table it until we're able to review the
will the whole
material.
committee be able to help
The
review
HR
that?
committee, yes, will be able to help. Thank you very much. Only the HR committee.
Excuse me?
Yes, Ms. O'Hansi?
If you're going to do it at an HR committee, which I think is acceptable, you can't exclude other board members who are not on that committee from participating.
I didn't say you couldn't participate. I said
Thank
this
you.
is, this
That's
is
all
going
I'm
to be
pointing out.
the HR committee that will
Fine.
look at this policy and rework it. Thank you
Fine.
very much. Any questions, any other things that we need to discuss today? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Roll call, Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Ms. Van
Yes.
Twyver, Ms. Porter?
Yes.
And yes, adjourn at 7:46.